Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. I'm excited for today's guest. She is the founder of Cherry Talent Group. And what she does is she helps connect the right employees with the right jobs and the right jobs with the right employees. So vice versa. She's a matchmaker. Super excited to be rocking out today with Suman Cherry. Hey, Suman, you ready to rock?
I'm ready.
Awesome. So we always start off here on a good note. Tell me a story of success in your business that we could be inspired by.
I think just the business that I'm doing right now. I mean, I started this business. I've been recruiting for a long time, and I took a chance and started a different type of model in recruiting. And it's just been so successful in the sense that it's just created so much value in connecting the right people with the right companies and creating a lot of value there. So I'm like kind of living my greatest success right now because I'm almost at year one of it. And it's just been so fun and so awesome, honestly. I mean, it's challenging, being an entrepreneur, but also like so much feels so good to do it as well.
Yeah.
And from that space.
Yeah, you're like feeling a personal sense of accomplishment or something, right?
And just, I think it's just when you approach business from a human place, it just has such a different feel than when you've done it. Because I've been in business for a long time. And so doing it from this space is different from doing it from more of a kind of a traditional business setting. You know what I mean? The way that it's usually done and more transactional based, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so now along with the good notes, sometimes there's some bad notes that get hit along the way. So I'm
Well,
wondering, can you share with us that part?
yeah, I mean, and like we said, like I said before we got on the call, I'm like, so my good is like my bad. And you're like, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. So, yeah, so I had a very successful business about a little over 10 years ago, and it was set up a very more traditional way of recruiting, and it was very successful. But it wasn't something that was creating a lot of value in my life in the sense that it caused so much stress in my family. My family and I, my husband and I were like, not doing well, and then it kind of snowballed that whole piece because I think, whenever you're kind of stuck there, it's hard to expand, right? Because you kind of get used to this sort of place and you're kind of afraid of risk. And so I didn't take the risks. And as a result of that, my business kind of overnight just sort of was like, okay, bye. And so that was pretty humbling. It took me some time to sort of recover. I mean, I did recruiting after that, but I think the new business I'm in now is born from kind of the mistakes or the kind of, I don't want to say failures, but the lessons that were learned in that business, if even from a personal level and also in my work life as well.
Okay. What were some of those big lessons that you learned then that you're doing different now?
I think one of the things is that you really need to ask for support and trust that support. And if the support isn't right, then you need to find that support because as an owner of a business, you cannot do everything. And you need to understand what your weaknesses are as a leader and be able to find people that can plug into those and give them the ability to grow into those roles, and to support you. Number two, I would say like the risk piece, like, when you're growing and expanding a company, every expansion is going to have some risk. So if you don't take that risk and you stay back in that comfortable zone, I know it feels really comfortable, but it's also contracting and suffocating, and the business
Yeah.
will eventually just poof. So that's
Yeah.
the next thing. Another thing is I would never work the way I was working before. Like I would never put my business, my work above my family or my connection to myself. Like it's always the other way around now. So my family, my connection to God or source, whatever, yourself is me. That's my number one space and everything is born through that. So that's my priority in my life. And that's how I've structured a business, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
those are
Does make
big
sense.
lessons. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, first of all, the connection to yourself and like taking care of yourself and all that stuff that keeps coming up over and over again in these interviews. And it's not necessarily something that would be common in, I think, an employee like side, right? You don't talk to employees about how to be good employees and they talk about their meditation routines, right? And their self-care
Yeah.
routines. It just doesn't, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
why do you think this keeps coming up in entrepreneurship?
Because I think that when you are an entrepreneur, so I think when you work for someone, I think that there's a lot of rules, right? And so you just kind of plug into those rules and you stay within that box. And when you do feel like maybe this isn't the right space, you might leave and go to another place where the next growth might be for you, right? And then it kind of stays there. But I think with an entrepreneur, it's like, it's you, right? And you're facing you. It's like there is nobody else. So when there's a mistake, it's like, okay, do I stay as a victim? And I say victim not from a negative standpoint. We all have that space because who do you blame? It's the person in the mirror. So it's like, okay, well, I take responsibility. I have to learn from this. I have to grow from this. So, and then as for myself, I realized like, what are these limitations that I have on myself? Are these really real beliefs? Why am I afraid to do this? Or what is sabotaging that? Or why am I chasing that? So for me, it was like, I always was looking for something outside of me until I reflected back and I started doing, however you want to say it, the self-improvement work.
Yeah.
And I realized that everything is built through me and just pushed out from me. So
Yeah.
and I think as an entrepreneur, you have no choice. Like you have to face that.
Yep.
That's just what it is.
Well, and I think another part of it too is that a company like a big company or a big business, they sort of have the turnover built into the plan, right? I mean,
Right.
we always, you see sort of like the movies and whatever the memes talking about, if you were to leave or were to die or what is that, whatever, they'd have your position filled in no
Right.
time, right? And
Right.
it's just it is what it is, right?
Right.
But that's the nature of the game. So if you burn yourself out in as an employee, the business doesn't disappear. The business
No.
is going to keep going, right?
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, it would be wonderful if companies would understand that and bring that to employees. But again, we as individual humans, people, it's
Mhm.
our own responsibility to take care of ourselves. And I always think to myself like this statement, like it's my standards, right? It's my standards. I have to set my own standards, and I have to be in that standard place all the time in my life. So if you're
Yeah,
working for an organization, and I hear it all the time with people I talk to, I'm like, why did you stay there so long? Why did you accept as much money? Why did you deal with that? Until they didn't have a job anymore, until they're in this really not good place. And it's like they just feel, um, they're not doing that other piece, right?
yeah.
So, but if you do that other piece, then you're going to know what your standards are as well, reflected back to you. It's just how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, we can create a business that does that for our
Yeah.
employees in a way. We do have the power to do that. But then on the other hand, I started thinking about that and I'm like, well, then again, you do have to make your own business resilient to that kind of stuff because employees come and go,
They
right?
do.
So really when it comes down to it, there is you can do as much as you can to help your employees grow personally,
Right.
to make sure that they are doing their own self-care. But when it comes down to it, you have to have a business that will survive if they do happen to leave.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think it's just a natural piece as well. I mean, everything is growing. So as you grow as a company, the employees that you have might have worked in that space then, and they just don't work now, or
mhm.
maybe you as a person. I mean, I think it's a natural thing. I think it's just important I think companies and individuals at companies, employees need to have a better understanding of making decisions quicker on like, is this the right fit match or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And not keeping that wrong space there. And this goes on both sides of the equation, right? Because companies keep people that are obviously not good matches for their organization
yeah,
for a very long time. And it creates a lot of disengagement in the rest of the teams as well.
yeah. And I think that, I mean, that particular topic has come up quite a few times on the podcast as well about, you know, firing quickly, right? I mean, if something's not working, they're going to be a drag on your organization if you don't figure out how to get rid of them, quicker than that. But I mean, a lot of this stuff does come back to if you're the top of the organization, if you are like you could be a solopreneur, but you also could have a team. Really, if you disappear, the whole thing disappears. So, you do like it's not the same thing. It's not the same things work for somebody else. If you disappear, the company still goes. If
Right.
you disappear as the owner of the company, the whole company goes.
Right.
So you better
Yeah.
make sure that doesn't happen, right?
Right, right. And it's just really important. I think as an entrepreneur, it is even more important to take care of yourself, like
Yeah,
in every aspect of your life. I mean, I'm not just talking about, I do the other types of, but exercise is so, I mean, to me, exercise, physical activity, whatever that means to you, it's so important. Like you need to take care of yourself, like what foods you're putting in your body and
Yeah.
how, what you're polluting your mind with and all those things. Like who are you taking advice from? Who are you complaining to? Who are you, like who are these mentors piece as well? Like all of these kind of flow into it, right?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So, who do you have as like, do you have mentors? Do you hire coaches? Like, what's your plan on that stuff?
So I've worked with a lot of different coaches over the years. I've worked with more kind of business, kind of business coaches. I tend to like to work. I'm someone who is very much about understanding, kind of moving through, like I'm an energy person. So I really like working with coaches that work with energy and but it all kind of correlates because we still talk about business, we still talk about our personals, and it kind of all moves through. So I've worked with them quite a bit. So I really like that. Obviously I've also worked with coaches that specialize in creating more value as far as on a business setting and those types of pieces. But I tend to like the personal coaching as well. Um,
Yeah.
that's just who I am.
Yeah. So you're more or less not necessarily hiring coaches for specific strategies. You're hiring for overall kind of like
I'm totally,
accountability.
yeah, because it also accountability, also balance. I want to this time around, I need that like I would talk about the support piece, right? I need support. I need to have a safe space where I can go and be in whatever's going on, and someone can kind of help me kind of move through that, whatever's going
Yeah.
on.
Hi, it's Mark Mawhinney from Natural Born Coaches, and I want to give two very big thumbs up to Tim Melanson and his Creative Crew agency. I have been using them for a long time, and I am 100% happy. They get the job done right, they're fast, and they let me focus on my business. I don't have to worry about anything. So again, I want to give them two very big thumbs up. I have no problem recommending them. I don't give testimonials for everyone because my name is attached to it, but I gladly do so for Tim and the Creative Crew agency. So use them, you won't regret it, and good luck.
Yeah, I find that when you're looking at mentorship and coaches, it is kind of one or the other. Either you need some specific skills that you want to learn, or it's just this overall kind of like I need to keep myself accountable to something because like when you're working for somebody else, I mean, if you don't show up to the office, eventually you're going to get fired. But
Right.
if you have your business and your business is moving along, it can take time. Like I've heard this before and it seems to be true in my life is that it takes about 3 months to like grow some momentum to see the results of growing momentum, but it also
Uh-huh.
takes 3 months for it to dissipate too. So you might be like flying high and everything's great, and then you just stop showing up. It it doesn't just immediately disappear. Your business doesn't just fall away
No.
like that. It takes some time for that to happen. And then
Yeah.
once it starts happening, you can't stop it,
Well,
right?
and I think it's, and I think, and just to be completely honest with you, I think it happens to all of us no matter what. Like I work with coaches, I do all the things, but there are times where I'm like, oh, I step away, and then I do see it, right? But the difference is now I can catch it faster, right? When I go into that place, like, okay, well,
Totally.
I'm there because I haven't done all of these other things that I need to do for myself. Like I haven't kept my cup full, so this is emptied. So this feels this way. So it's just, but before, when I had the business before, I had no idea even how to recognize it. So it was just like it kept momentum the other way, right?
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. It's interesting because I like just being on this show, I've had so many times when I'll be talking to a guest and they'll be mentioning something that I definitely know. I know, but I'm not doing anymore. Right. It's just one of those things where you sort of like fall off the track of doing things that you're normally doing. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you say, it is totally normal to do that. And it's just one of those things where if you have somebody in your corner that can kind of, keep checking in and go like, are you still doing this thing that you know how to
Yes.
do?
Yes. And that's the other thing. And like the coach I work with, she keeps, like, it's a mastermind of women, right? So it's all these women who are all entrepreneurs. We're all in the same age group. We all have, and so it's really nice to collaborate and listen to what everyone's going through. It's a lot of the similar things. But most of the time, what she's telling us to do is stop overthinking it, stop being a perfectionist, stop doubting yourself, just put it out there. Like, just do it. Make the call, have the conversation, put the social media, whatever it needs to be done, whatever, just do it. And that's usually what it is.
Do it.
Just do it.
So let's talk a little bit about the home office. So sometimes
Okay.
that can be a little bit challenging to get spot, to actually do your work.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think is important, in a home office?
Locks on your doors if you have children. Lots of threats to your children of stealing their iPads away. No. Anyway.
Wi-Fi passwords?
Yes. Bribery of Roblox to them. Well, I think you need to have a quiet space, right? And you need to make a space your own. I think that's very important. Like, I don't let anyone in this room, like any of my family members. I'm like, this is my space. You're not allowed in here. Everyone is allowed in here. You guys have your own space. So I'm very like this, and I always work from the same space. I'm very consistent about that as well. So I think that's very important. And my space doesn't have anything in it. There's nothing to distract me. I don't have a TV in here. I don't have anything to distract me, because if I go and work from somewhere else, I'll get distracted, because then my dogs are there, or this is going on, or whatever. So I've learned that if I really need to get something done, I'm not saying I don't always work from other places, but if I really need to dedicate myself, I have to be in my space, and I have to like hone in on it and like give myself a break after a certain point. I've had to really be consistent with that with myself working from home.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It's super important. So let's talk a little bit about practices and practicing. So, this comes up quite often. Like, what are the things that you do to not only stay sharp, stay up on your business, but also even personally? Like, do you have routines, rituals, things that you do?
I mean, I go to bed really early. I mean, I'm usually asleep before 10:30. So I'm pretty like set on that schedule. And I wake up at almost at same time every morning, somewhere between 6 to 6:15. Even on the weekends, I try to, maybe a little bit later, but I stay consistent with my week. I have I work out a certain days of the week every single time at the same time. And I do it the same way, our different types of workouts. And I set my day with that. I do simple things like, I don't know, my husband and I, like in the mornings, we really like to sit before our day starts while our daughter's getting ready, just to have a cup of coffee. And we put our phones away and have like a 15-minute conversation about our day. I don't know, something like that's really simple, because then we're just like connecting on that place. What are some other things I do? I do some meditation. I don't do it as much as I used to, or as consistent, but I try to do some type of space where I go outside, I'm in the grass, or I'm, look in nature at least, or a walk for at least 30 minutes a day, if the weather is permissible. So those are my main things. I really focus on things, and I try to make sure I drink enough water. They're very simple things, and I'm very consistent about it. Like the exercise thing, I don't cancel. It doesn't matter how I feel that morning, even if my mind is like, oh, what am I doing? I'm like, no, I show up.
Yeah, and that's the thing, eh? You might not feel like it, but have you ever regretted doing a workout?
Oh, I know. And every time I'm in the workout, I'm like, I can't believe I wanted not to show up. What's wrong? I love it. Then afterwards, the next time, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to work out.
Yeah, it's just to remind yourself, the after workout me is going to be super happy.
So I think it's just, I think for me, the biggest shift again is consistency. I'm very consistent with things, and I'm also very open to flexibility to things to change if something pops up or stuff. I try to have at least lunch with like a girlfriend during the week. I try to put some play in my day. I don't want it to be all work. I try to have some enjoyment.
A bit of balance.
It's important,
Does your husband work from home too?
He does.
Interesting. So how does that work out?
I don't know. It's interesting because he kind of goes into his cave. I go to my cave. We sort of meet up for like little junctions where he might make me something for lunch or something and bring me lunch. Or we might discuss like who's going to pick up our daughter or whatever, or what's going on. But we're pretty good about having our space during the day. I might pop into his office and say hi or something like that. But we've been working together from home for our entire relationship. We've been together for almost 15 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it wasn't one person work from home, one from the office, and then
No, I think when we originally met, when we first dated, we both had jobs outside the house. But I think then when we've been married for 13 years. Okay, I'm just like remembering
Mhm.
13 years, and yeah, we both have worked from home. And this house is much bigger. We used to live in Austin. We had this little small house, and that was different. We had a baby, but so like during COVID, all these couples were like, "Oh," I'm like, "I don't know. I've just always been used to it."
Awesome. Yeah, my spouse and I also we work from home together as well, and we have even during COVID or before COVID. So yeah, it's one of those things where for us there was no change, which was
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, for us, it was really easy. I mean, I like it. I've gotten used to it. I mean,
Yeah.
we give each other privacy, right, in space. Like we're not we respect each other with what they're doing in their day. You know what I mean?
Okay. But you're not working in the same business. You have different
Different
businesses.
businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably easier because my spouse and I work in the same business, so it's a little bit more
Yeah.
complicated because things get like when you end up talking, you end up talking about business, right?
Yeah. No,
Whereas you guys probably don't.
so my husband and I did work together in the previous business, but we have realized that we are better as a relationship if we don't work
Okay.
together in a business. We do better when he has his business, we talk about his stuff, I have my business, it's like we have our own things. So it's better.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it easier to separate too, because that's the thing. When you get together for supper, if you're working the same business, sometimes you end up talking about this
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Cool. Well, it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business.
I mean, we are super excited. We had such an incredible 2023. It was our first year, and we're going to have some social media out, kind of like really seeing what we really saved our clients this year. Because our models, like I really didn't go into the model, but for most people that have used recruiters before, external recruiters, they're familiar with the kind of contingent model, which is the model where you don't pay anything up front, you pay a percentage of the first year salary, usually 20-25%, which can be cost prohibited for a lot of smaller businesses, right? There's also some risks. So our model is different. It's hourly based. It's very consultative based. Like we help you with the job description. We help you where you're going to market it. We understand, like, do market analysis, and because salary is important. What are other people asking? Like what's competitive in your area? And then we really go out and really source that position for you. And it's hourly based. We've saved a lot of clients a lot of kind of money and time, but it's a deeper relationship that you build with the candidates and the clients because there's no attachment to the candidates. So it really connects this connection. And we've had a lot of success. We've probably placed, I haven't added up the numbers, but I think we've placed 30 plus people this year, all
Wow.
through the United States. And it's just been super fun to do as well. And it's great for smaller businesses because, you know, you can, it's a fraction of a cost. You can, get a really good search for an external recruiter because hiring is hard. And it's
Yeah.
really important. And it's also time consuming. And companies really hate doing it. Like nobody wants to be responsible for it. They're like, no, it's yours. But the truth is, it's like so important to your business, to your vision, to your purpose, like who you are as an organization. And it is so important to take your time to find that right person. Like you said, I mean,
Mm.
they always say hire slow, fire fast. And having someone else handle that for you, like we talked about the support piece, that's exactly what it is. Because most of the companies I talk to, a lot of the companies I talk to have less than 25 people and 50 people I work with. And the CEOs are doing this. They're like at night going through resumes and they're like, I don't want to do this. I don't have time for this. I'm running a
Yeah.
business. So being able to hand that off to someone else and being like, handle this for me, it's just a game changer for them. I mean, I've just seen so much success. I mean, my clients are like, I can finally, like, I had a client last week, an owner of a company. He's like, his wife reached out to me and she's like, thank you so much for finding this PM for us. Like, he's like, finally gets to have some time, like it's changing their life because when
Mhm.
you're an entrepreneur and you don't have people to help you, the right people, that is a
Right
very
on.
difficult situation.
And so you work on both sides. You work for the employees and you also work for the companies, right?
Well, I only work for the companies.
Okay.
But when I'm working with the employees, there's no attachment to the candidates, right? So I'm really there to like facilitate, like, is it a good match for them as well, right? I mean, if someone says to me, I'm looking for a slower pace, and my client's like, I want, high energy, then
Yeah.
that's not a good match. So and then it's a salary range, or they're, I'm not going to put someone in a situation like they're making more money. They're like, well, I would settle for, it's like, it's never a good situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not going to, who wants to stay in that situation, right? So we do a lot of behavioral questions too, because we're trying to understand does someone take responsibility for their mistakes? Is it someone who has, like, the questions you ask, like the failures piece, like, because that is important. We learn our lessons and we take responsibility. We don't stay as victims, and then that's how we get free to change. So that's what I'm wanting to see in those candidates. Is it someone growth oriented and that kind of thing? So it's a different dive, different approach. It's very human based, and like some of the candidates are like always like, wow, it's like nice talking to recruiters as a human, not a robot.
Love it. So what would be the like companies that would be the best fit for working with you?
I think like, companies that are either don't have an HR internal like recruiting team. I mean, if you have a big team, I get that it's a different type of animal. But if you're a company that has maybe just HR and doesn't have any internal recruiters, or it's just you, or if you have worked with external recruiters in the past and it's worked, but the costs are a little bit more, or it hasn't worked and you want to try something different, I think those would be great companies to work with. Companies that really want to attract great talent, but don't have the time and the energy to look for them.
Love it. Right on. So how do we find out more?
So you can go on my website, cherrytalentgroup.com. I'm all over LinkedIn. It's Suman Cherry. So you could see, you can contact me through there. My website, there's a submission form. You can reach out to me through there. So yeah.
Love it. Right on. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Suman. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. And we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.